Troy Aikman. When Troy Aikman was selected with the first overall pick in the 1989 NFL draft, the expectations could not have been higher. Dallas believed they had found the quarterback to lead them into a new era, but his rookie season told a different story. The Cowboys were in complete rebuild mode under new head coach Jimmy Johnson. The roster was stripped down, the offensive line was porous, and the team lacked talent at nearly every position. Aikman was thrown into the fire, and the results were brutal. He started 11 games, lost every single one, and threw for just 9 touchdowns against 18 interceptions. Dallas finished the year 1-15, and critics labeled Aikman a disappointment. For many, he looks like the latest top pick destined to be remembered as a bust. But those struggles were only the beginning of his story. Johnson and the Cowboys front office went to work building a foundation around him. Through shrewd drafting, they added Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, and an offensive line that would become one of the best units in league history. Aikman didn't have to carry the team by himself anymore. Instead, he grew into the role of a steady, efficient leader who thrived in big moments. By 1992, just 3 seasons after that disastrous debut, Aikman had transformed. He led Dallas to a Super Bowl victory, was named Super Bowl MVP, and proved himself capable of commanding an offense loaded with talent. Over the next 4 years, he guided the Cowboys to 3 championships, making 6 Pro Bowls, and cementing himself as the face of a dynasty. Vernon Davis. When the San Francisco 49ers drafted Vernon Davis with the 6th overall pick in 2006, he was billed as the next great tight end. He had rare size, elite speed, and strength that made him look like a generational prospect. But his first few years in the league were anything but dominant. Davis struggled with inconsistency and maturity. He clashed with coaches, had issues with drops, and never reached the level of production expected from a top 10 pick. By 2008, he was best known not for a highlight, but for being publicly sent to the locker room mid-game by head coach Mike Singletary, who famously said, "I want winners." To many, Davis looked like a wasted pick who would never reach his potential. Then came 2009, with Singletary still pushing him and quarterback Alex Smith starting to find his rhythm. Davis finally put everything together. That year, he caught 78 passes for 965 yards and 13 touchdowns, tying the NFL record for most touchdown catches in a season by a tight end at the time. His speed down the seam, physicality after the catch, and newfound focus turned him into a nightmare matchup for defenses. From that point on, Davis became a cornerstone of the 49ers offense. He earned 2 Pro Bowl selections, helped lead San Francisco to multiple playoff runs, and played a pivotal role in their resurgence under Jim Harbaugh. His performance in the 2011 playoffs, particularly the game-winning touchdown against the Saints in the divisional round, known as the Catch 3, cemented his place in franchise history. Alex Smith. When the San Francisco 49ers drafted Alex Smith first overall in 2005, the pressure was immediate. Taken ahead of Aaron Rodgers, Smith was expected to become the face of the franchise. Instead, his early years were defined by chaos. The 49ers cycled through offensive coordinators, head coaches, and schemes. Smith played behind shaky offensive lines, battled injuries, and never found rhythm. By the end of 2010, he had thrown more interceptions than touchdowns in multiple seasons, been booed by his home crowd, and was widely considered a draft bust. Even the 49ers seemed ready to move on. Then, 2011 changed everything. Under new head coach Jim Harbaugh, Smith was given stability for the first time in his career. The offense was simplified, the coaching was consistent, and the confidence followed. That season, Smith threw for 3,144 yards, 17 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions while leading San Francisco to a 13-3 record. He wasn't flashy, but he was efficient and clutch. His most iconic moment came in the divisional round against the Saints, when he led 2 game-winning drives in the final 4 minutes, capped by a touchdown pass to Vernon Davis in what became known as the Catch 3. The 49ers fell just short of the Super Bowl, but Alex Smith's reputation had completely flipped. From there, he became one of the league's most respected quarterbacks. He later led the Chiefs to consistent playoff runs, earned 3 Pro Bowl selections, and was admired for his resilience and leadership. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed and dropped a like for the algorithm. James Farrior. When James Farrior was drafted 8th overall by the New York Jets in 1997, expectations were high. He was a tackling machine coming out of Virginia, projected to become an anchor for their defense. But over 4 seasons in New York, he never lived up to the billing. He struggled to find the right role, played out of position at times, and never became more than a rotational linebacker. By the time his rookie contract ended, he looked like another top 10 pick who hadn't worked out. Then came his career-changing move. In 2002, Farrior signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers in free agency. It was there that his career completely turned around. Pittsburgh moved him inside in their 3-4 scheme, surrounded him with playmakers like Joey Porter and Troy Polamalu, and gave him the freedom to read and react. Suddenly, Farrior thrived. By 2003, he had 141 tackles. In 2004, he was named an All-Pro after posting 95 tackles, 4 interceptions, and 3 forced fumbles. He became the defensive captain, the communicator, and the glue of Dick LeBeau's aggressive defense. His leadership and consistency were invaluable during the Steelers' Super Bowl runs. Farrior won 2 Super Bowls with Pittsburgh, played in over 200 career games, and finished with more than 1,400 tackles. He went from being a draft bust in New York to one of the most respected defenders of the 2000s in Pittsburgh, Phil Simms. When the New York Giants drafted Phil Simms 7th overall in 1979, fans and analysts were baffled. Many thought it was a reach, and his first few years in the league seemed to confirm it. Simms battled injuries, missed time, and never looked like the steady quarterback the Giants hoped for. By the early 1980s, he was considered a disappointment, often labeled a bust by the New York media. But in 1984, everything began to change. Under new head coach Bill Parcells, Simms finally stayed healthy for a full season. He threw for 4,044 yards and 22 touchdowns, showing poise and command that had never been there before. He proved he could push the ball downfield, stand tough in the pocket, and give the Giants an offense that could complement their tough physical defense. That year didn't end with a championship, but it marked the turning point of Simms' career. He grew into a reliable leader and the long-term answer at quarterback for Parcells' Giants. Just a few seasons later, his legacy was cemented forever. In Super Bowl 21, Simms delivered one of the greatest performances in championship history, completing 22 of 25 passes for 268 yards and 3 touchdowns. Earning Super Bowl MVP. From a rocky start filled with boos and doubt, Simms built a career that ended with over 33,000 passing yards, 2 Super Bowl rings, and a spot as one of the most respected players in Giants history. Garrison Hearst. When Garrison Hearst was drafted 3rd overall in 1993 by the Arizona Cardinals, he was supposed to be the next great running back. Instead, his early years were plagued by injuries and inconsistency. He missed nearly all of 1995 with a knee injury and never truly lived up to his draft status in Arizona. By the time he moved to Cincinnati in 1996, he was already viewed by many as a bust. But Hearst's career came alive when he signed with the San Francisco 49ers in 1997. After a solid first season, everything peaked in 1998. Hearst rushed for 1,570 yards, averaged 5.1 yards per carry, and added nearly 500 yards as a receiver. He became the engine of a 49ers team that went 12-4, earned a Pro Bowl selection, and looked like a legitimate Super Bowl contender. The highlight of that season came in Week 1, when Hearst ripped off a 96-yard overtime touchdown run against the New York Jets. It remains one of the most iconic runs in NFL history, showcasing his speed, power, and vision, all in a single play. Unfortunately, his story took another turn. In the 1998 playoffs, Hearst suffered a devastating ankle injury that sidelined him for 2 full seasons. Many assumed his career was over, but against all odds, he returned in 2001, rushed for over 1,200 yards, and won NFL Comeback Player of the Year. Desmond Howard. When Desmond Howard won the Heisman Trophy at Michigan in 1991, he was expected to become an NFL superstar. The Washington Redskins drafted him 4th overall in 1992, hoping his speed and elusiveness would translate into a game-changing wide receiver. Instead, his first few years were underwhelming. Howard never developed into a reliable offensive threat. With Washington, Jacksonville, and later Oakland, he struggled to find a consistent role. Through his first 4 seasons, he had fewer than 1,000 total receiving yards. By the mid-1990s, he was viewed as one of the biggest draft busts of the decade. But in 1996, everything changed. Signed by the Green Bay Packers, Howard was finally given the chance to focus on special teams. He became the NFL's most dangerous return man, leading the league with 3 punt return touchdowns and over 870 punt return yards, the most in NFL history. His quickness, vision, and ability to cut on a dime gave the Packers a field position weapon few teams could match. The peak came in Super Bowl 31. Howard returned a kickoff 99 yards for a touchdown against the New England Patriots, swinging momentum in Green Bay's favor. He finished the game with 244 total return yards, the most in Super Bowl history, and was named Super Bowl MVP, the first and only time a return specialist has ever won the award. Thomas Jones. When Thomas Jones entered the league as the 7th overall pick in 2000, he was expected to be a franchise-changing running back for the Arizona Cardinals. Instead, his first few years were filled with disappointment. He battled injuries, struggled to produce behind a weak offensive line, and never broke 1,000 yards in any of his 3 seasons in Arizona. By the time he was traded to Tampa Bay in 2003, most had written him off as a bust. But Jones refused to quit on his career. After a solid season in Tampa, he signed with the Chicago Bears in 2004. It was there that everything clicked. In 2005, he broke out with 1,335 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns, finally living up to his first-round pedigree. He followed that up with another 1,200-yard season in 2006, playing a key role in the Bears' run to Super Bowl 41. Jones was a tough, physical runner with great vision and patience. He didn't rely on flash. He wore defenses down over 4 quarters. After Chicago, he continued his success with the New York Jets, where he had a career-high 1,402 yards in 2009 and earned a Pro Bowl selection. By the time he retired, Jones had racked up over 10,000 rushing yards, putting him in rare company among NFL running backs. The same player once dismissed as a wasted draft pick had become one of the most consistent and durable backs of his era. Jadeveon Clowney. When Jadeveon Clowney was drafted 1st overall in 2014, he was supposed to be a generational defensive talent. His size, speed, and power at South Carolina made him one of the most hyped prospects in modern draft history. But his NFL career didn't start the way many expected. Clowney's rookie season was derailed by a knee injury that required microfracture surgery, one of the toughest procedures to come back from. Over his first few years in Houston, he flashed potential, but struggled with consistency and health. While he made a few Pro Bowls as a disruptive run defender, he never became the dominant, sack-producing force fans envisioned. By 2020, after stints with Seattle and Tennessee, his reputation had shifted. He was viewed less as a superstar and more as a player who hadn't lived up to the #1 pick hype. Then came his 2021 season with the Cleveland Browns. Lined up opposite Myles Garrett, Clowney finally found the perfect role. He posted 9 sacks, 19 quarterback hits, and 11 tackles for loss, his best numbers since 2018. He looked explosive again, collapsing pockets and wreaking havoc in the run game. For the first time in years, he played a full, healthy season and delivered on the expectations that had followed him since college. Clowney didn't suddenly become a Hall of Famer, but in 2021, he showed the NFL the version of himself everyone had been waiting for: Ken Burrough. When Ken Burrough was drafted in the 1st round by the New Orleans Saints in 1970, expectations were high. He was a gifted wide receiver with size and speed, but his early years were rocky. Burrough only lasted 1 season in New Orleans, where he caught just 13 passes and was quickly traded to the Houston Oilers. For a top 10 pick, it was the kind of start that usually defines a bust. But once he landed in Houston, his career took off. By the mid-1970s, Burrough had grown into one of the league's most dangerous deep threats. His breakout season came in 1975, when he led the NFL in receiving yards with 1,063 and averaged an astonishing 20.1 yards per catch. He became known for wearing the unusual jersey number 00, and his combination of long strides, athleticism, and ability to win downfield made him a nightmare for defensive backs. Burrough made 2 Pro Bowls and finished his career with over 7,000 receiving yards and 49 touchdowns. He was a cornerstone of the Oilers' offense throughout the 1970s, providing explosive plays in an era when passing wasn't as dominant as it is today. Terry Bradshaw. When the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted Terry Bradshaw with the first overall pick in 1970, he was supposed to be the quarterback to lead their long-struggling franchise. But his early years were rough. Bradshaw threw more interceptions than touchdowns in each of his first 3 seasons, was benched multiple times, and was mocked in the media as being too mistake-prone and too raw to succeed. By the early 1970s, some fans in Pittsburgh already wondered if he was a bust. Everything changed in 1974. That season, the Steelers finally had the right pieces around him. With a dominant defense, a strong running game led by Franco Harris, and the emergence of rookie receivers Lynn Swann and John Stallworth, Bradshaw was no longer forced to do everything on his own. He played with more confidence, managed the game effectively, and delivered in clutch moments. The Steelers won their first ever Super Bowl that year, beating the Minnesota Vikings in Super Bowl IX. From that point on, Bradshaw's career skyrocketed. He became the leader of the Steelers dynasty, winning 4 Super Bowls in a 6-year span and earning 2 Super Bowl MVP awards. His big arm, poise under pressure, and ability to shine in the postseason completely flipped the narrative around him. Michael Crabtree. When Michael Crabtree was drafted 10th overall by the San Francisco 49ers in 2009, he was expected to be a dominant NFL wide receiver. At Texas Tech, he had been unstoppable, winning back-to-back Biletnikoff Awards and piling up video game numbers. But his transition to the NFL was rocky. A contract holdout delayed his rookie season. Injuries slowed him down, and when he was on the field, he struggled to separate consistently. Through his first 3 years, he averaged fewer than 800 yards a season and scored just 12 total touchdowns. For a top 10 pick, the production was underwhelming, and many began labeling him a bust. Then came 2012. With Colin Kaepernick stepping in as quarterback mid-season, Crabtree finally broke out. He set career highs with 85 receptions, 1,105 yards, and 9 touchdowns, becoming the 49ers' true number 1 receiver. His chemistry with Kaepernick was instant, highlighted by a stretch run where Crabtree scored 5 touchdowns in the final 4 games of the season. He carried that momentum into the playoffs, posting 119 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Packers in the divisional round. He was a critical part of the 49ers' run to Super Bowl 47, where he came within a few yards of catching what could have been the game-winning touchdown. Crabtree never reached those heights again. Injuries slowed him the following year, and while he had solid seasons later in Oakland, 2012 remained the peak of his career. Eric Swann. When the Arizona Cardinals drafted Eric Swann 6th overall in 1991, he was already a unique case. Unlike most first-rounders, Swann had never played college football. He went straight from semi-pro ball to the NFL, drafted purely on raw size and athletic potential. That unusual path made him a fascinating prospect, but also a risky one. His early years in Arizona were uneven. Swann flashed power and athleticism, but struggled with consistency and injuries. He didn't develop as quickly as fans expected, and for a while, it looked like the Cardinals may have gambled and lost on one of the boldest draft picks ever. But by 1995, everything came together. That season, Swann racked up 8.5 sacks, 70 tackles, and a forced fumble, earning his first Pro Bowl selection. He was finally playing to his potential, overwhelming offensive linemen with rare quickness for a 300-pound lineman. Over the next few years, he became the centerpiece of Arizona's defense, making back-to-back Pro Bowls in 1995 and 1996, and earning All-Pro recognition. Swann's peak was short, as knee injuries cut into his career and eventually forced him out of the league by 2000. Eric Ebron. When the Detroit Lions drafted Eric Ebron 10th overall in 2014, they believed they were getting the next elite tight end. Instead, his time in Detroit was marked by inconsistency, drops, and unmet expectations. Over 4 seasons, he never recorded more than 5 touchdowns in a year, and by 2018, the Lions released him outright. For a top 10 pick, it looked like his career was heading firmly into bust territory. But then came his fresh start with the Indianapolis Colts. Signed as a free agent before the 2018 season, Ebron found instant chemistry with quarterback Andrew Luck. The Colts offense gave him freedom to work as a red zone weapon, and he responded with the best year of his career. He caught 66 passes for 750 yards and 13 touchdowns, plus another rushing score, finishing second among all NFL players in touchdown receptions. Ebron's athleticism was finally on display. He was too quick for linebackers, too big for defensive backs, and he gave the Colts a reliable threat inside the 20-yard line. That season earned him a Pro Bowl selection and completely rewrote how people saw his career. Although he never repeated that exact success after 2018, his breakout season proved he could live up to his draft status, even if it came years later. Ted Ginn Jr. When the Miami Dolphins drafted Ted Ginn Jr. 9th overall in 2007, the pick was controversial from the start. Fans expected a franchise player, but instead, they got a speedy return man and gadget receiver who never developed into a true number 1 option. Across stints with Miami, San Francisco, Arizona, and Carolina, Ginn's career was marked by inconsistency, dropped passes, and the perception that he'd never live up to his draft slot. For years, he carried the bust label. But in 2015, with the Carolina Panthers, everything changed. At age 30, Ginn finally had the breakout season that justified his first-round pedigree. Playing in an offense led by MVP Cam Newton, Ginn became the deep threat that tied everything together. He caught 44 passes for 739 yards and 10 touchdowns, by far the best scoring season of his career. His ability to stretch defenses opened up the field for Newton's improvisation and the Panthers' strong running game. Ginn's speed had always been undeniable, but in 2015, he paired it with efficiency and confidence. He scored multiple long touchdowns, delivered in key games, and helped Carolina to a 15-1 record and a trip to Super Bowl 50. Although he never became a classic top receiver, Ginn proved his value as a playmaker. His career extended more than a decade after many wrote him off, and that 2015 season stands out as the year he flipped the narrative. Steve Young. When Steve Young entered the NFL, his career didn't look like one destined for Canton. Drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1984 after a stint in the USFL, Young struggled badly on a team with little talent around him. In 2 seasons, he threw just 11 touchdowns against 21 interceptions, winning only 3 games. Critics labeled him a bust, and Tampa quickly moved on. Young's career was revived in San Francisco, but even there, he faced obstacles. He sat behind Joe Montana for years, watching a legend control the team while he waited for his chance. Many wondered if he would ever step out of Montana's shadow, or if he was simply destined to be a talented backup who never fully lived up to his draft billing. Then came 1994, the year everything came together. Young led the NFL with a 70.3 completion percentage, 35 touchdown passes, and a 112.8 passer rating, one of the best marks in history at the time. He guided the 49ers to a 13-3 record and capped it off with a dominating postseason run. In Super Bowl 29, Young threw a record 6 touchdown passes against the Chargers, earning Super Bowl MVP and finally silencing the critics who said he couldn't win the big one. That season cemented Young's place as one of the greatest quarterbacks of his era. He won league MVP in 1992 and 1994, was named to 7 Pro Bowls, and eventually earned his place in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Ryan Tannehill. When Ryan Tannehill was drafted 8th overall by the Miami Dolphins in 2012, he was supposed to be the quarterback who stabilized a franchise stuck in mediocrity. Instead, his years in Miami were up and down. He showed flashes of talent but struggled with injuries, inconsistency, and never delivered a playoff win. By the end of 2018, most of the league saw him as a failed top 10 pick, a player who would never be more than a backup. Then came his chance with the Tennessee Titans in 2019. Signed to be Marcus Mariota's backup, Tannehill took over as starter midway through the season after the offense sputtered. What followed was one of the most dramatic turnarounds in recent NFL history. In 10 starts, he threw for 2,742 yards, 22 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions, while leading the league in passer rating at 117.5. He unlocked Tennessee's offense, forming a deadly partnership with Derrick Henry, and suddenly, the Titans became one of the most dangerous teams in the league. The peak moment came in the playoffs. With Tannehill managing the offense and Henry running wild, the Titans stunned the Patriots in the wild card round and then upset the top-seeded Ravens to reach the AFC Championship game. Tannehill didn't put up massive passing stats in those games, but his efficiency, leadership, and timely throws changed the perception of his career. He was named the 2019 Comeback Player of the Year and signed a 4-year contract extension the following offseason. For a quarterback who was written off as a bust in Miami, Tannehill had officially rewritten his story. Mark Ingram. When the New Orleans Saints drafted Mark Ingram in the first round of the 2011 NFL Draft, they thought they were getting a workhorse running back. But his first few years in the league didn't live up to that expectation. Sharing carries in a crowded backfield, struggling with injuries, and failing to top 650 rushing yards in any of his first 3 seasons, Ingram was already being talked about as a first-round bust. Then, with patience and persistence, he turned things around. By 2014, he finally cracked the 1,000-yard mark, but it was 2016 that marked his true turning point into a star. That season, Ingram rushed for 1,043 yards, averaged 5.1 yards per carry, and scored 10 total touchdowns. For the first time, he looked like the dynamic, versatile back the Saints believed they drafted. He showed vision, power, and balance, becoming a trusted weapon in both the running and passing game. Ingram's breakout solidified his place in the Saints offense, and over the next several years, he became part of one of the NFL's most dangerous backfield duos alongside Alvin Kamara. His consistency earned him 3 Pro Bowl selections, and by the end of his career, he was the Saints' all-time leading rusher. Cordarrelle Patterson. When Cordarrelle Patterson was drafted in the first round by the Minnesota Vikings in 2013, he was billed as the next great playmaker. At Tennessee, he was electric with the ball in his hands, and his athleticism tested off the charts. But once he reached the NFL, he struggled to find a role. Patterson was a Pro Bowl kick returner early in his career, but as a wide receiver, he never developed into the star many expected. He bounced between Minnesota, Oakland, New England, and Chicago, flashing on special teams, but never putting together consistent production on offense. By his late 20s, most considered him a classic first-round bust who would finish his career as a gadget player. Then came 2021 with the Atlanta Falcons. At age 30, Patterson was moved into a hybrid role under head coach Arthur Smith, part running back, part wide receiver, part return man. For the first time, a coaching staff fully leaned into his versatility. The results were remarkable. Patterson set career highs with 618 rushing yards, 548 receiving yards, and 11 total touchdowns. He lined up everywhere, from the backfield to the slot to outside, and became the centerpiece of Atlanta's offense. What made the season even more shocking was the timing. After nearly a decade in the league, Patterson had been written off as a failed experiment at receiver. Instead, he reinvented himself and showed he could be a true offensive weapon. His breakout year earned him league-wide recognition and gave him the respect he had long chased. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed. Thanks for watching.